Let's roll it on out, folks. Let's take this head on. Welcome to 2023. The world is not what it was when I came into it in 1966. Peter Buttigieg, put in position of the Secretary of the Department, or rather the National Transportation Safety Board. That was a mistake. He has no experience in transportation whatsoever, as far as I know. Probably never even learned to drive a standard transmission, probably never drove a truck, a bus, ran an airplane, a boat, nothing but a car. I know he's younger than me. And the thing that particularly sets me off about him, East Palestine, Ohio, had a very bad train derailment involving multiple chemical cars, which, now I got to get my facts straight, but I believe the NTSB and others decided it was okay to burn this stuff up. There's fish dying by the thousands, chickens dying, people coughing up blood, and respiratory stuff going on in the town. Mr. Buttigieg has had no interest in visiting East Palestine. Now, there's several different theories for this. One of them is because it was a mostly Republican, conservative, Midwestern town. Coastal Democrats are very self-centered. They're only into their rich, monetized coastal Democrat enclaves, and make no mistake about that. That's one. But what was of particular interest to me was Buttigieg was busy posting stuff on, I don't know if it was Facebook or whatever, showing him and his gay lover with the baby that they've adopted, and so happy. And when he was interviewed by a reporter while he's out taking a walk, saying, well, I'm taking personal time. Now, if you back up and you take clips of different secular, liberal, fake news organizations, they were waxing eloquent. He's gay. He's great. Thought it was a wonderful thing that he was in charge of transportation. Folks, no offense here, but I'd be a better candidate to head up the Secretary of Transportation, National Transportation Safety Board, because I know something about these things. I've studied trains. I've studied ships, some airplane disasters. I've driven buses. I've driven trucks. I'm fascinated by accidents. I studied a railway accident back in the, 30s, 40s, of a train where the boiler exploded and shot all the steam tubes out in front of it. It's ghastly looking. People were scalded to death that were the crew. But Peter Buttigieg is typical of the Democrat left in putting people in office that don't know their head from a hole in the ground. And we've seen this over and over. President Biden's spokeswoman, a black woman, first opening salvo to the American people. I'm a black woman and I'm lesbian. Wow, that's great. That just puts me at ease that the country's in good hands. I am not here to bash. I am not homophobic. I have had homosexual desires. Uh-oh. Did you really just say that? Yes, but they didn't come naturally. I'm going to talk about the truth about homosexuality. I'm going to talk about the truth because you're not going to get it on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, NPR, MSNBC, Huffington Post, the New York Times, the Washington Post. You're not going to get a true understanding, a truthful representation of the truth on homosexuality. And when I'm talking about homosexuality, I'm also including in that lesbianism and all that other stuff that goes underneath literally the entire alphabet being added to LGBTQB, blah, 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 blah. Okay? I'm trying to be sensitive to this. And I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you fact. When God made Adam and Eve in the garden, he said it is good for a man to leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife. God never, from a biblical standpoint, well, listen up, atheists, God never, in the Bible, condoned homosexual behavior. Homosexuals try to cite Jonathan and David the way they loved each other. They had a friendship love. There are different levels of love. The Greek word, there's more than just the four. There's agape, there's phileo, there's that family love. Phileo is where we get Philadelphia from, the city of brotherly love. We have eros, which I'm well familiar with, and most of us men are familiar with eros, erotic love. Two straight men can be having a discussion and will admit to each other they'd love to see two women girl on girl. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to break this all down. Number one, let's start off this discussion. Putting people in high political positions that make a big to-do about their gayness is disturbing. And it is the sign of the beginning of an end. People forget about Sodom and Gomorrah. They totally ignore that. We're headed right back there again. Okay? I am in no way bashing homosexuals. I'm friends with many gay and lesbian women throughout the course of my life. But I've noticed in my previous YouTube channel for years, I attracted two people that had a vitriol for me. One was Pandora the Eclectic. The other one was none other than Andrew Drescher, a.k.a. Legatus Lanius, Robert House, and who knows how many other aliases. And I'm not here to get into flattering their egos. Both of them do not have a proper way of thinking. They don't have a conscience that's convicted by the Bible, by God, by the Holy Spirit. They think what they're saying, what they've done, and the attacks on me, in their twisted mind, they think that's okay. And we see this in 2020, people rioting, tearing stuff up, and thinking there's nothing wrong with that. Antifa, a group organized by the left, supported by the left, to raise hell. I bring Democrat thinking into this because it needs to be. The Democrats are really pushing this stuff. But let me make it clear. I've met gay and lesbian men and women who have looked me in the eye and said, I don't go with the Democrat Party. They think they own us, and they don't. We may be gay, but we think for ourselves, and we don't agree with what the Democrats are doing. The Democrat has always tried to pimp for votes. They have pandered to the LGBT community. They have pandered to the black community. And it's been very successful for them. No one is born gay. I will tell you that from the outset. I've read all the so-called things about the hypothalamus and all these bogus things, and I'm going to say it. Homosexuality is a choice. It can be affected by environment. It can be affected by the will and intents of others. It can be affected by people grooming somebody who is vulnerable, naive, and or younger than them. It can be done by fear. It can be done by force. It can be done by insane kindness and seeming caring. Grooming. Homosexuality is a choice, but it can be forced upon somebody. But we're going to get into some mechanics here, so bear with me. I live in the South, and unfortunately, in the last few years, my focal point, even though it's not what I wanted it to be, I'm very much into Asian culture. And I came to the South with an open mind. Black culture is what I'm saturated in. I'm not racist, but Black culture and Caucasian culture are not the same. Let me make that very clear. We're humans. We breathe and bleed and have hopes and fears, but we are not the same. Morgan Freeman made a statement, him being black himself, 75% of African Americans' problems are brought on by themselves. And I agree with that. I see it. I see it in living color every day down here. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing about them blaming whites and all that, because I do not agree with them. I do not agree that there is systemic contempt for their race. I'm going to use that word to avoid Google and their stupid algorithms. We heard a lot of usage of pandemic and systemic during 2020, a word that Democrats really love to use as bludgeons. And it really bothered me, because we need to understand that you have a lot of black men that have been raised by black women. No thanks to black men who used black women as a cum dump to impregnate them, booty call, whatever you want to call it. And when the children showed up, man was out the picture. You have a lot of men that are growing up under African American women. And the stereotypical picture comes to mind of the angry, surly-looking black woman. I've worked with children that have big, domineering, bombast African American women and no father in the picture. And these kids grow up with this constant yelling, and they're afraid of their mothers. And there's no positive male role model in their lives, a lot of them. So naturally they head towards crime. Naturally they head towards gangs. This does not just apply to blacks, but I'm using them as an example. There are white kids, there are Asian kids, and there are Mexican kids. If they don't grow up in a stable family home, if they grow up by a domineering mother who doesn't have the proper tools, if they don't get the appropriate touching, I'm not talking sexual, but appropriate love and touch, these are kids without a compass. And what you see in the prison system, especially with a high concentrate of African Americans, and you see that the prison culture mindset has carried right out here with the pants sagged, butt crack showing. And that is saying, I'm ready for this. I want to be butt raped. That's what that's all about. And it's alive and well in prison. And why does this exist? Because you get around a lot of black men that have no tolerance for the gay thing, but then you get in the prison system and it's rampant in there. Well, I'm going to tell you why. It took me a lot of years to realize this, and it took me living out here to realize you have black men that naturally have more strength than most of us, most of the other races, white, Asian, Hispanic. Black males and black females have been gifted with a lot of strength. They don't have to go to the gym to get all that muscle. That's my observation. And you have a race of people that is naturally stronger. That was one of the reasons they were brought over here and used as slaves. I'm not saying that's right. I don't believe it was right. But they were used because they were incredibly strong. Men growing up under black women, there are exceptions to this rule. There are godly, God-fearing black women that when they got handed lemons, they made the best lemonade they could and raised some God-fearing good kids. But for the most part, statistically, criminally statistically, you go to any place in America where there's a domination of black people, and this will stand striking and glaring. A huge amount of mothers raising the kids. A lot of the mothers on substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, and they keep promoting the sexual loose culture. And when mama gets mad, it's emotionally driven logic. Come here, boy, I'm going to tear you up like a piece of chicken. That's what they grow up with, that constant yelling, cussing, profanity. And you got black males growing up not knowing what a real man is. And they get out there in life with males that are public school teachers, police, bus drivers. And guess what? Because you have now a grown man that was raised as a child under emotionally driven logic female. Guess what happens? Guess what happens? You have a generation of boys and men that operate like this. Emotion. They weren't raised with the steady hand of a man who's balanced and said, I know this makes you mad. And their instinct is to fight or to shoot. Now, that's not just black men. I'm using black men as an illustration because the numbers are so high against them for percentile-wise of men raised solely by women, and a lot of those women are not doing a good job. Screaming and yelling at your kid means you've lost control. It's one of the things I had to learn working with youth. And what is sad is those kids don't learn proper anything. They fear mom, but then they go into a life of crime. They think that they're men. They'll see white men, they'll see anybody else, and they grandstand. And they're not men, they're boys that are full of all of the insecurities, all of the flaws of mom, and they don't know how to deal with things. And if you look at them the wrong way or you cross their path, those big, strong men are going to be a danger to you. So you put all those guys in the criminal justice system, and they're in prison. And guess what? The stronger one's going to grab the other one and do classic butt rape. That is scary stuff. I had a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. I had a set in Duluth, Minnesota years ago underneath my coffee table. I had bought it from somebody. And I read years ago quite a bit about Encyclopedia Britannica, and they have pages and pages on the subject of homosexuality. And in it talks about men away from women for prolonged periods of time, specifically in the Navy. There was a high amount of homosexual activity. And I want to say something to people that they may not understand. Just because somebody participates in, say, mutual jacking off or touching or curiosity does not mean that that person is gay. It depends on what he has been exposed to. I'm talking mostly of men right now. What he's been exposed to. That I know for me, something happened to me, two different things. I hung around a student when I was in elementary school in California, and he was a troubled kid. He was laughed at by everybody. And I had moved from Los Angeles to a small mountain town, and I didn't fit. There were family names, there were household names in the community. I wasn't one of them. Me and my sister were misfits, and I hung out with this other lad. We were both in the same grade, and we used to run around on the playground and stuff, and I knew nothing about him. He made me laugh. I made him laugh. And we would talk about things. And I remember he chased me, or not chased me, but we were running to get away from the girls. And we ran into this fort that was constructed out of sagebrush and cow patties, big ones, dried up. And it was private in there. And we had this roughed out, weathered plywood door on the front. And the girls wouldn't go in there. Ew, cow poo. And we'd go rile up the girls on the playground. They'd chase us. We'd run in there, slam the door, and they wouldn't come in. And I remember his name was Michael also, and he goes, get down, I'll cover you. Didn't think anything of it. He jumps on me. I've got my face down. And, as a kid, you don't think anything of it. I remember he started massaging my shoulders. And I remember it felt good. I never thought about gay stuff at all. That wasn't in me. And I thought, wow, that feels good. And I said, wow, thanks. He goes, no problem, man. You look like you needed it. I thought nothing of it until I got into middle school. And we would go down to the creek. My dad had an office. I had to sit in my dad's office all day, and my only respite was say, Dad, can I go down to the creek? I'll walk a mile away to the creek. There was woods in the creek. We'd play in it, and I'd meet up with friends. And I'll never forget when Michael went out to take a piss in the middle of a rock in the middle of the creek, stood there with the biggest heart on and all the hair around him. I was shocked to see that because I wasn't exposed to that. He goes, hey, you want to? I said, what? You want to come over and touch? I said, no, man, I'm good. That was such a shock to me. And I was like, no. And at that point, I thought, what's going on with Mike? And of course, when I was in junior high, kids would sit around, and when we were left unattended, we'd sit there and go swimming, and everybody go to pee, and then they look at each other, man, you got a big little DICK, and everybody doing the cock comparison thing, and some of that crap was normal junior high stuff. We had kids. I'm not going to mention their names, but everybody knew they were gay. They both talked in feminine voices, and they were not into women. And yet, one of them had all the women as friends because he was in theater and drama. And, hey, good to see you, man. And Mike always stuck in my mind. I never hated him. He told me something when I was in 5th grade that stuck with me. I don't know where his parents were, but he spent a lot of time being raised by his older sister. And she had a boyfriend. And I'll never forget, here I am, a kid. My life in my home was not good, but I didn't hear these kind of things in my home. And he said, yeah, my sister's boyfriend makes me fuck pillows and stuff. I'm like, fuck pillows? And I thought, man, this kid is harassed and teased. So I had a bond with him because I had moved to this mountain town. I was teased. And we'd swing on the swings. We'd talk. I never suspected that he had any of this stuff going through him. In 1989, I moved to Duluth, Minnesota, and there was a park I used to frequent. I thought it was beautiful. I had no idea what went on down there. I did not know it was a cruisy site. I knew nothing of it. And I had read the Chronicles of Narnia when I moved there. And on a hot summer day, I went for coffee with one of my coworker female friends. She goes, you want me to take you home? I said, you know what? Which way are you going? She goes, I'm going. I said, drop me off at the park. I'm going to hang out down there for a while. It was a hot August foggy night. Foggy, sultry, steamy, hot night in Minnesota. And there was an old man I used to talk to. Never even entered my mind. And he started touching me one night on the leg, and he started talking to me and complimenting things. And there was this push-pull thing. And sadly, when I talk about these kinds of things, as you know, there's all kinds of idiots on YouTube that are going to just make fun of that. Let me make it very clear to you that what I'm talking about, the biggest harassment to me has not come from straight people at all. It's come from militantly defending bi or homosexual behavior, male and a female. Simply because I made a statement in past videos that I believe homosexuality is a sin. But so is adultery, so is theft, so is having one bed partner after another. But guess what? There's some people that believe card playing is sin. Some people believe dancing is sin. Some people believe it's a sin to listen to any rock and roll music at all. I don't agree with those. There are people in Christianity on both sides of the fence. One group says masturbation is a sin. One says it isn't. Respected biblical scholars and even James Dobson, Focus on the Family, did not think that masturbation was a sin. If you wanted my opinion, I don't know what the answer is. I think if most men are honest, and a lot of women too, they have engaged in that. Everybody knows, even if you don't do that, you're going to have a nocturnal emission. And what's going to happen is you're going to go to sleep and you have some dream. And it may be heterosexual or homosexual with people you don't even know who they are, conjured up in the mind, and you wake up and you're roaring hard and you're just like, what the hell? I am very careful. A lot of churches spend a lot of time condemning looking at porn and masturbating. Do I believe looking at porn is a sin? I do. Have we done it? Have I done it? I have. But let's back this truck up. You had a culture of women. When I moved to Duluth, there were pretty women I worked with. They were not interested in me. They liked me. They would hang out, but they wouldn't go out with me. And I saw in my own life where it's like, what is wrong with me? Is it these? I had people tell me my glasses were thick. I had women tell me they didn't like glasses. I should get contacts. That's funny. Most men I know are not put off by a sexy woman with glasses. Pacific goulash, macaroni, cheese, tuna fish, mixed peas and carrots. Just about all your food groups in there. Dairy, grains, veggies. There are men in my life in the past that I've looked at and thought they had a good looking chest. That's it. Me, I know there's differences between men and women. I'm not into men. Men have hairy armpits, they sweat, and they tend to smell. They got hair everywhere. Down their legs, their butt, all up their chest. I don't look at men and go, wow. What I'm admitting to my viewers is in a world that we live in, especially back in the day, and I remember growing up in middle school, everybody was calling everybody an FAG. And the term became, oh, that's gay. Everything was gay. That's a gay car. That's a gay bike. Those are gay clothes. And it didn't mean homosexual. It just became a slang term for that's lame. If you saw two men hugging each other, oh my gosh, that was gay. And you remember Seinfeld with the awkward. Our culture over here is weird because when I went to Asia, I found that women have less hang-ups than ours do. You're in Asia, you're on a train, and I can't tell you how many times a good-looking, drop-dead, gorgeous Chinese woman that I don't even know, I'm on the MTR, which is their version of the subway. Sometimes it's elevated, but most of the time it's underground. And I'd feel somebody boom, fall right on my shoulder, and I'm looking at long black hair down to her waist, beautiful body, beautiful figure, and she's asleep on my shoulder. I'm like, my gosh. Come on, guys. What's the chance of you riding public transit anywhere in the U.S. and a woman you don't know that's drop dead gorgeous is going to fall asleep on your shoulder? Hell no, that's not going to happen. And of course, when I went to leave, I'd go aside, put my hand on her head, because I'm about to get off. And if I just get up, she's going to whack her head on the seat. And she always appreciates it. I just didn't want you to fall. We in this culture, that if a woman is actually nice to us and is good looking, I'm speaking for myself. I won't speak for all of you. I tend to think, oh, maybe she's interested. Because we've been damaged and broken and rejected. And guess what? No, they were just being nice. All of a sudden in the U.S., there's an explosion, bisexual, bicurious, gay, lesbian. And the people who like to do that stuff rationalize and justify it by saying things like, oh, it's always been there. Can I tell you something? As screwed up as my family was, the family I was adopted in, there was nobody in my family that even hinted at that sort of thing. So that's a pile of crap. What happened? Social media, the Democratic Party, sitcom television, all the liberal news networks started pushing it. You had Ellen DeGeneres, and you had Rosie. They made it Vogue. Elton John, flaming gay, was a hit with all the women that were older than myself. My sister listened to Benny and the Jets, Rocket Man, all that. I didn't know for years about him being gay. I never was into Elton John. Is he a talented musician, artist? Absolutely. Do I like his stuff? No. I've never been a fan of him. The Queen, who recently passed away, was tickled to death with Elton John. It's a weird dynamic. I see it where I work. In fact, I see it in just about every place I've worked. I see it on the media. The ladies all love gay men. They all just are enthralled with gay men. There's a dichotomy that hits us when you get out there. When I look in the mirror, when I'm shaving and washing up, I look at myself and go, I don't think I'm ugly. But there's not a line of women at my front door waiting to go out with me that are comparable in physique to me. And we've been conditioned as men. It must be the glasses, must be my income, must be the clothes, must be my truck or my car or whatever I'm not driving that they think I ought to drive. That's not it. I just said yesterday, women will date guys in prison now. Well-to-do women that got financial stability plus looks, they'll fall in love with some murderer, a thug. When I used to go to the steam bath in Colorado, I went for a variety of reasons. I went because I liked steam and I liked the sauna and the hot tub. I also went because you could be naked in there and never be laughed at, criticized, or looked down on. I had more conversations, more sincere conversations with males in a steam bath than I ever have in a church or work or any other place. What's wrong with that picture? We talked about God, politics, sexuality. You can't have that conversation with most people today. Not at all. And yeah, sometimes I got back massages by men, good ones. And people will wrongly assume that means I'm in love with men, that I have a relationship with that, and that nothing could be further from the truth. I had men hit on me when I was there. They offered me their phone number. One guy said, man, I could live in this place. I could date whoever I wanted, female-wise, but he just wanted to experience being naked with me from time to time. I didn't take him up on it because that's not who I am. And you got your bashers and haters out there, or in the case of some of the trolls that I had, they're pissed off because they can't get a piece of me because I'm not as gay as they'd like to think I am. And they then get revenge. It's like a jilted guy that's pissed off because the girl snubbed him and didn't go out with him. Back to black men. They want women to get in a prison system, and they'll take advantage of the weaker guys and oral sex them, or anal sex them, excuse me. A horrific environment. A horrific environment. I would never want to be thrown into prison because I would fear for my life. And they talk about prisoners have rights too. No, they don't. If I was in there, I'd have no rights to being protected from that at all. Same with women that get into those prisons. Same thing goes on with them. Men on Navy ships out at sea for 6 months at a time. One of the problems that the Christian church has not dealt with is they make a constant diet of, attack on men. I've said this before. Just about every church in America is good at telling us men, porn, masturbation, lust, that's all the men here. Nothing is said about the self-righteous, nasty mentality, entitlement, obesity, disgusting dog addiction, addicted to everything but Jesus. That preachers act like simps. And they favor the women. They never convict them, never step on their toes. And you know why they don't? Because they know in the back of their mind, you want to kill a church? Convict the women in the audience. They'll up and leave. I'm not going to apologize for what I'm saying. If that is your concern, you have no business being in the pulpit. You're supposed to preach the truth. And I was thinking about this last night. There are times I thought, why even talk? I'll never be viral. I don't have thousands of followers. At one time, I had 3,500. And I said, but wait a minute. Jesus had 12 men, 12 disciples. Now, if God himself, in the form of Christ, Emmanuel, God with us, had only that many, and then you look at women on their Facebook and they got 5,000 friends. Let's just do some simple deducing here. How many people got time for 5,000 individuals? None of us do. Jesus had 12. More intimate setting. He could impart to them truth. They walked with him. And you got a generation of women today on the social media. Oh my gosh, everybody likes my TikTok. I mean, have you seen, can I just say this? The absolute stupid way they dance. There's nothing talented about it. Jerky, attitudinal moves. Then they're all copying each other. And if they don't have their bra on and all the nipples are bouncing around, they'll get tons of views by 60, 70-year-old men, by other women, by kids. False sense of confidence. Some of them will even get paid. Minors today can get Cash App. People can say, look, you send me a nude video, I'll send you Cash App. Girls love new iPhones and they love money. This government hasn't even touched the tip of the iceberg in trying to deal with sexual trafficking, grooming. But you got kids today and young women today doing it on their own because they want that money and they're so full of themselves. And then you got men like me and some of you. And good luck getting a good-looking girlfriend. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And what is sad about that I had, my gosh, 1,300 friends on Facebook. But let's be honest, 99% of them were women from overseas wanting me to come and marry them. They weren't 1,900 people who had my back. A friend of mine messaged me last night from New England and said, your content and your stuff on Facebook, I like to see that. He's a successful business owner, has a beautiful wife, and makes a lot more money than I do. I've worked with troubled youth. And you see it all the time in troubled youth. When they grow up without a good father figure, and it's women and men, girls and boys, if you're nice to them, they will become attracted to you in a physical way or a sensually aroused way. And let me be careful what I say here. Michael hasn't done inappropriate things with minors. That's not part of my repertoire. But yes, if I had minors come on to me, yes, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And I've always made sure that I didn't accommodate that sort of thing. Remember years ago, when I was dating a gal in high school, I'd go over to pick her up on a date. And her dad wanted to talk my ear off constantly, but the Chihuahua would come up. And the Chihuahua was a sucker and liked to be petted. And I'd pet it, and you'd stop, and the dog would keep scratching it. All right, and you pet and pet and pet. Pretty soon, the dog's dry humping your leg, and you're like, dog, get off. And you're... Does it mean the dog's in love with me and attracted to me? No. Stimulation. Sexuality is directly connected to all of the other crap that goes on in our life. You don't have love in your home. You don't have a good father figure, male or female. You don't have a good mother. You don't have a mature mother. Then you meet somebody who's trustworthy, nice, and cares. It's the same way as me. If a woman's pretty and she's talking to me and she touches, Mike, good to see you. My gosh, she must be interested in me. No, she isn't. She's well adjusted. But In this culture, you have a lot of SLUT teases, mostly white women. They'll come up, oh, hi, touch you, talk to you, pour it on. You finally say, hey, vacation's coming up, and coworkers, here's my number if you want to get to. Oh, you giving me your digits? Girls like all that buzz speak. Yeah, I am. Nothing happens. You come back from a week off. You see her. You don't say nothing. This just happened to me out in Colorado. She walked through the break room and doesn't even look at me, but I didn't look up. She would always get my attention before. This time, no. And I saw girl after girl after girl after girl do this in Denver. I saw a lot of that in Denver. Every place has its own fingerprint. Here in the South, a lot of cliquishness, a lot of racial and cultural issues. And then let's add in another factor. I'm not the norm anywhere I go. It'll make it hard to get a date. I'm good at my work. I can be professional, but I'm not a butt kisser. I'm not politically correct. When my shirts get old, I cut the fringes off. It's hot in the South, and I wear them like this. Why? Because I'm comfortable with it. Now, do I do it at work? No. Will I go downtown and do that? When I shoot pool, dance? Absolutely. Do some people look at me and go, huh? Are there men that look at me and go, wow? Are there even some women that look at me and go, wow? Yes, on both counts. But nothing's happened. And as I get older, I just learn to be myself and let the chips fall where they fall. It takes a lot of guts to do that. Our society, as adults, we experience peer pressure, and most people just give in to it. There are different degrees of homosexuality. There are men that like anal sexing other men, like the whole package of a man. They want to fall in love with a man. That's what I call same-sex homosexuality. That's true homosexuality. In the U.S., you have the rainbow flag, wearing little fruity, form-fitting underwear that looks like girls' panties or whatever, and riding pride floats. That all is such a turnoff to me. I met truckers and cowboys and loggers and businessmen. I met people from all walks of life. They got deep voice. They work out of the gym. You would never know this. Some of them have a wife. And they've all admitted to me that they've had a same-sex attraction, but they're not into all that hardcore stuff, the anal sex. And over the years, I've tried to figure out, so why does this happen? I can't always give a good answer for that. But I look at my own life, a passive dad, a mother who was domineering and constantly displeased with me, does not help. And children who grow up in stable, loving homes do better in so many ways. As a rule, we're living in a society that's trying to redefine everything. We're living in a society that's talking about AI, artificial intelligence. The Bible talks about the man of lawlessness, the man of sin, who we call the Antichrist, that one world leader that's going to eventually come on the scene. And he's going to be smoother than smooth and have the world believing this is the Messiah. It says he will change the times and the seasons. Look at what's going on right now. Normalizing things that are not okay. The Supreme Court legalizing gay marriage. Even godless, ancient civilizations did not do that. Peter Buttigieg. I don't like the guy. He's arrogant. He's extremely self-absorbed. And they go adopt a baby. You think that kid's going to grow up to be a normal, functioning, God-fearing adult? Chances are pretty slim under that para. How about I have two mommies? And lesbians really get mad when I say that this is wrong. But a lot of lesbians are man haters. And to the lesbians, I just say, it's ironic. You hate men, but you came here because of a man's semen. Don't forget that. And if lesbians hate men so much, why are they using dildos shaped like the man's ding-ding? These are all questions that need to be answered. And we got a society screaming that it's okay to be this way. We got a society screaming against anybody like myself that says, no, this is not okay in God's eyes. Now, where I differ from even conservatives and Christians, I don't think anybody can always help feeling a same-sex attraction. As a Christian man, I'm guilty. I've seen pictures of two women with their bras off and nipples touching, and I felt arousal. That's called eros. It's wrong, but it's erotic as hell. And this is not the kind of a message you're going to hear in a church anywhere in America. It's too taboo for that. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. America is the number one producer of pornography and exports it around the globe. Why is that? America was a Judeo-Christian ethic-driven country for a long time. Family-oriented, pro-marriage. What happened? The feminist movement, the Democratic Party, TV, Hollywood, the media, now social media controlled by dominating oligarchs, spoiled, entitled, younger than me, woke generation making billions of dollars. You cannot call an 800 number. You cannot get customer service and talk to anybody in these fortress social media organizations. That should have caused everybody to say, whoa, hold on here. You got a problem with a Goodyear tire, you can call the Goodyear dealer and you can have it out with somebody. You cannot do that with Facebook. And what are these institutions doing? This goes against our community standards. What community? Oh, the Facebook hired community? Who gives a shit what they think? They don't like straight white males. They don't like conservative Republicans. They don't like Donald Trump. They don't like anything that smacks of oldness, trusted, tried, and true. So fuck your community standards. Things had gotten so bad in Sodom and Gomorrah that some angels came down to visit Lot. I'm gonna share something with y'all right now. Abraham and Lot had some dispute. Both of them were getting herds and servants and things where there was some squabbling. And Abraham says, okay, hold on here. I'm not going to have this. If you say I'll go to the left, then I'll take the right. If you go to the right, I'll take the left. Now, what did Lot say? I'll go to the well-watered plains of Sodom. The beautiful place. Hate to say it, folks, but you tend to meet God in the desert, not in the idyllic settings. And if you really want to get deep into this, pay attention to where all the wealthiest and the most craziest Democrat, the Democrat Party lives in the most beautiful sections of America. Let that sink in. They're also the most crime-ridden, the most decadent, the most costly to live. Buttigieg doesn't care about the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, doesn't give a damn. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say something, and this is my opinion, and I'm not being harassing, I'm not being demeaning, but how can a man stick his dick up somebody's ass where shit comes out of and think that that's okay? But let's back this up. How did I get to a point where an older man touching me, I wasn't attracted to him, I wasn't in love, telling me I was good looking and some personal things about personal stuff? Because when you grow up in a screwed up world and you don't get what you should get in a healthy, balanced home life, you find a surrogate. That's why kids who don't feel loved and can't measure up in schools, they gravitate towards gangs because gangs promise them acceptance and status. That's why a lot of bikers, cowardly men, join a biker gang. They suddenly feel big. A lot of people get involved in illicit sexual activity because the normal people, the mother, the father, in my case, my mom and dad were a mess. Yes, I had my physical needs met, toys, clothing, food. We lived in nice houses. But when your mother's always shoving you away and the only touch is a negative touch, and my aunt would massage my hair. My other aunt would give us cousins back massage. She wasn't perving. And my mother was not a more warm, demonstrative woman. I don't want a man. A man cannot give me what I need. Most women can't give me what I need, not today's. Most women are all about their needs only in this culture. Most people living in America today have totally forgotten one of the greatest statements made by, of all people, a Democrat president back in the day. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And are women doing that? They're saying, what can a man do for me? Flip the script, boys. What can you women do for us other than rob us of our bank account, root our finances, and give us a headache and grief for the rest of our life? What can you give us? When relationships become cheap, when you're not desired and you're not loved, and you're a man or you're a woman, and there are women too that have been through the same thing we men have been through, and where do they go? How about a girl that grew up in school that was not gifted with beauty? She's more butch in every way, and all the guys are going to make fun of that. But another girl comes along who's not adored and liked either, and guess what? These two are going to connect right now. And all it takes is for one to lean over and say, you know what? I really like you. And that touch is grossly underestimated in our society. And the devil rides. When things aren't right, the devil comes in like a flood. So the angels come down. Things get so bad in Sodom and Gomorrah. And God tells Abraham, look, I'm about to destroy this. And Abraham begins this little discussion with God. If there's 10 righteous, if there's 50, God said if there's 10 righteous, I would spare it. And at that point, Abraham's starting to realize, wow, this is really bad. And God tells Lot, you need to get out of here. The angels show up. And then they come and Lot brings them into the house. And things are so bad that even Lot, a godly man, does something that just shocks the hell out of everybody. The men of the city are banging on the door. Hey, bring those men out so we can have sex with them. I mean, this was an aggressive, out of control homosexual culture surrounding Lot's house. I mean, they were on full lust mode with these angels. And Lot goes out, men, this ought not to be. Here, you can have my 2 daughters. These men were incensed. Shoo, we don't want your girls. And how dare you live among us and you judge us? And that's what they're doing today. You stand up and say it's a sin. How dare you judge, you homophobe? In Canada, if you preach that homosexuality is a sin, the Canadian government will bust you for it. That's happened. If something is so right, then why are people getting in trouble in a church setting saying that God doesn't believe it's right? That's not a hate crime. A hate crime is if you go down and know where all the homosexuals are living and start destroying all their property and physically or killing or maiming them. That's wrong. But no, folks, what we're seeing, the Bible says the time will come when men will call good evil and evil good. We're there. Some of you men may struggle with bisexual desires. Why don't you just be honest about it? Stop playing that stupid game that, well, I'm a Christian. Of course you're a Christian. Doesn't mean that stuff goes away. A lot of people have listened to me because I speak the truth that they will not hear anywhere else. Have there been men attracted to me? Of course there are. I don't care about that. I'm comfortable with who I am. Does it mean that we're going to have a thing? No, it does not. I'm not the true definition of a homosexual male. One, I don't do anal with men. I haven't had it done. I haven't done it. I've never even put my mouth on another guy's. I don't want to do that. Wouldn't it be easy if I was gay? I could get a number of dates. I could have a date this weekend right now. I don't want to date a man. That's not even in me. But like the dog that's getting petted over and over and humps your leg, it's the same thing. When you're in a steam bath in Colorado and somebody says, wow, you look great, and they start massaging you, it's amazing how powerful that touch is. Is it connected to the eros? Oh, you better believe it is. Am I into him? Do I want a love relation? No. Stimulation is the word here. And you can be straight as an arrow. And somebody of the same sex could touch you in such a way that you're sitting there getting all hard on city. Does it mean you're gay? No, it means stimulus. You know how many guys get together and jack off on the couch together and don't even touch each other? Something about doing it in front of each other. Man, there's so many people that do that. They ain't going to do all that touching and crap. There's different levels of different things. And all of this has happened. And I'm going to say a lot of this has happened in our culture because of men and women. But women, you got a lot of women raising kids today. You got a public education system that's dominated by feminist women, most of them immature, most of them with an axe to grind and vendetta. And all they do is yell at the boys, settle down, settle down, settle down. They're not going to settle down. They're developing their motor skills. They're not interested in crossing their legs and reading a book on tea gardens. Maybe teachers need to be re-educated about boys. But guess what our society's doing? Women are trying to be like the men today, especially in the African American community. Women that are bombast, I hear it all day long. Man, she come up and talk to me, I'm going to lose my job. You're 62 years old. You're going to get fed. Damn right. They still haven't grown up. They haven't learned to control their emotions, and they're raising boys. So what if black boys growing up in a house? Boy, you better come here. Ah! What are they going to do when somebody, like say me, somebody's blasting their foul stuff and shaking the whole neighborhood? If I was walking over and said, dude, can you turn that down? How do you think they're going to react when they grew up in that environment? The fuck? You white boy going to come over here and tell me to turn my shit down? Fuck you. And if I dare to rise up, what's going to happen? He's going to punch the shit and tear me up, or he's going to shoot. Now, do I say that all black people respond that way? No, but that's typically the way that's going to go. And that's why white people don't say a word. So women are to blame for that. The men are to blame because they cum dumped her and left. Man, you brought a kid to the world, you might want to be part of his life. And black males suffer the most with deadbeat dads and no dad in the picture. And the prison system is full of a ton of black men that didn't get a loving, solid home. Look at black men who are successful. Look at black men that are controlled. They are self-controlled. They grew up in loving mother and father homes that feared God. And I don't care what Buddha judge. I don't care what this spokesperson. And then you got Lightfoot in Chicago, a black lesbian. Blacks are killing each other left and right over there. And what is she doing? Ding, nothing. She's too busy worried about Abbott sending illegals to other places in Texas. Hey, babe, why don't you stay in your own lane and fix your city? You're not mayor over that. You're mayor over your city. Women are not to be in leadership positions over men. That's what Paul told Timothy. And for me to say that, the feminists just get irate. Oh, this guy's misogynistic and chauvinistic. That's the only way women can win an argument today. Call me names. Tell me there's something wrong with me. Oh, that settles it. Okay, that's all we need, ladies. We're done. This guy's an idiot. They don't base anything on fact. It's emotionally driven bullshit. And men have stopped being men. If I had grown up in a healthy environment and some man put his hand on me, like, dude, what are you doing? That would have been the norm for me. It's very easy to condemn something that you may not struggle with. And people read me wrong all the time whenever I do video on here. Nothing pissed me off more than seeing Andrew Drescher, a low scumbag dude, get on the internet and show my face photoshopped with the body of a guy with his jeans out. Come on, boys. That's him. That's him. Let me tell you what I've noticed over the years. True militant gays, true militant lesbians, you know, the ones that marry each other, the ones that are very pro-pride, those are the haters. Those are the ones that are very dangerous to society. You better accept us or else. And look at these companies now. Did you hear what Lego's doing? Lego's going to be including gay Lego pieces and dismembered Lego pieces to represent handicapped people, depressed people. Let me say something. Lego's a toy that everybody played with, and no one, not a black person, not a gay person, not a girl ever sat down and said, man, I wish this was more. They're Legos. When we're living in a culture, and all that crap is wokeness hitting a company, a toy company, and the gays will say, oh, let's get behind these guys. It's clever marketing at its best. It's entering the cesspool at its lowest. Barbie's a sin because she's white. Now we have to have black dollies and Asian dollies and Mexican dollies. And it's just gotten so ridiculous. Remember, they started screaming about Aunt Jemima? Did you all see the thing written by a surviving family member connected with Aunt Jemima and said, "This was my family's company. We are black. There's nothing racist about her picture being on there. This was started by a black woman. Uncle Ben's rice. We got to get rid of that. Got to get rid of Land O'Lakes with the Native American on there." This stuff is stupid. Now, I was listening to Paul Joseph Watson. British Society is now saying that people who listen to George Orwell in 1984 and Adolf Huxley and any of those, they could be extremists. They could be fanatics. Funny, 1984 was about exactly what these clowns are doing today. Censoring your speech, taking away your rights, putting you in poverty. Do we not see this in America? Have you checked your food bill lately? I spent $125 the other day to buy food. I remember when I was in Spokane back in 2008, 2009, $42 a week to get my basic staples of food that I faced at home. No, the left doesn't want you to read 1984. And guess what? Biden's bending over backwards to bring in all the gay people, all the lesbian people. And you have the major liberal news networks saying, "Isn't this great?" And those same networks are talking trash and disrespecting Christians and conservatives and Trump. And I know Trump ain't perfect. I know Trump doesn't put a filter on it, but he has not done what these Democrats have done. The Democrats act like their party is the Messiah that walks on water, and I'm tired of it. And this gay stuff is being rammed down people's throats. And now, if that is enough, it's the transgender thing. And I'm not going to get into a big discussion. I admit I have a feminine side. So what? Do I want to become a girl? No. Am I a man? Trust me, very much so. But because of Google and their Hitlerian style censorship on anything they don't agree with, I'm going to have to couch this in very careful terms. Transgender to me might be borderline MENTALILLNESS. I can't help but think that. You're going to sew up your penis to look like a coochie and you're going to do some of the stuff. There's something troubled there. Same-sex attraction is not something you're born with. Same-sex attraction is brought into play, most importantly, from the start of the family you were reared up in. Then you give yourself a steady diet of the media, culture, Hollywood, and the liberal left, and the public classroom, which is telling you it's okay to be gay. And they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Now you have scores of young ladies in the public education system that are lesbian, scores of young men that are gay. And again, if a young man meets a man that's nice, they're thinking the same way I'm thinking. If a woman's nice to me, oh, he's nice, man. And they're feeling homosexual arousal because the men they've seen are just harsh, nasty. An 11-year-old student told me not too long ago, black. He said, "I don't want to be involved with women. They're always yelling. You can't please them. They're always demanding more and more." An 11-year-old kid is thinking this. I'm going, this is a kid who's going to embrace the homosexual lifestyle. Because he's growing up in a home where mother's yelling. He's seeing black women are just boom, like that. And it's very hard to communicate with a lot of black women that you're yelling and you're throwing a weight around is not a good way to rule things. You need to have a firm hand with your kids, but when you're yelling, you've lost control. When you're doing emotionally driven logic and tyranny, yeah, your kid is going to fear you for a while, but then he's going to get the hell away from you, and he's not going to know how to deal with life. You think he can yell at his boss. You think he can do this. And you're seeing companies do this. They're tolerating bad people because they can't get a good work crew anymore. And they're putting up with the absolute crazy stuff. Yeah, sexuality is very much affected by negative parenting. Absolutely. Sexuality is very much affected by being bullied and rejected by your peers. Sexuality is affected by the fact if you didn't get good touch by the folks you should have gotten it from, and somebody gives you a touch, and even though it's different and twisted in your mind, immediately goes, what the hell? You're being reached in a way that says, man, I've never felt this before. And there's the Jekyll and Hyde. I remember going home that night after the park, and I'd lay in bed, just, I'm a Christian, this is wrong, am I gay? And get up and rub one out, 15 times that night? I'm like, what is going on? This was incredibly erotic, but it's so wrong. It's the forbidden fruit concept. And when you don't get what you need, a surrogate takes place. So I begin to learn, okay, I can't get a date, and I'm feeling horned up. And I learned, like Pavlov's dog, man, I can go down there and you can stand there and with each other and move on. We're not born that way, folks. And I don't care what the loudest pro-LGBT person says. I don't care if they shout me down and try to hate on me. The truth is, God made them male and female, and he told them to marry. And the argument goes like this from the gay community. Well, there's a lot of parents that are raising their kids. You're right. But that doesn't make your sin the better way. It doesn't, it won't, it can't. And if you think that God, everybody likes to camp on Sodom and Gomorrah and say, well, God should destroy San Francisco. Then he needs to destroy every American city and town because there's gay people and lesbian people in every single one of them. San Francisco just put itself out there as the gay capital of America. But folks, this goes on all over the USA. And just like we ask, why is America the biggest producer of porn? Well, because most guys can't get good-looking women unless they got a fat bank account. And women put themselves out into the porn world. Remember, there was a time when women screamed and yelled that women were being victimized and treated as something to be used, exploited. And I laughed. I said, but you were willing to put yourself out there for the cash you got for it. Shut up. If you're going to take off your clothes and an image comes up on my screen, I'm going to stop and go, wow, nice nipples. You're showing it. And men were condemned. Now women are jumping into that because it's an easy way to make money. Show my tits, jump up and down. And here's the sad reality of TikTok. You got women underage and my age and just over 18 on TikTok, no bra challenge. They'll get thousands and thousands and thousands of likes, and it goes right to their ego. They don't bother to unpack what age is in there doing that. It could be 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old men going, wow. Because it's legal. You're putting it on TikTok. YouTube is hosting it. And social media is hosting it. And you got young ladies getting turned on by you. So you have this false sense of confidence that you're some rock star. All you're doing is shaking your boobies around, and I'm going to look. I remember when they had the TikTok no bra challenge, and an adult friend of mine was showing me, we were on break one day at work, and he said, check this out. I said, oh my nipples. I said, how old do you think these girls are? He says, I don't know. I said, look, some of these girls look like they're teens. And it's right there on TikTok. Hosted on Facebook, hosted on Google/YouTube. And then you hear about these men that are downloading child images. They're getting arrested and all this. And I'm going to say something right now. You notice authorities aren't doing a damn thing about TikTok? Well, that's China. Why isn't it being banned? Why are they not getting on Google and YouTube and Facebook for allowing that shit to go through there? Facebook censored me many times for making a political statement. If I show a grown woman with a soft bra nipples, I've been jailed for 6 days or 30 days. I can't even do that. But then they'll show lesbians with bras off, nipples making contact, and tongue kissing. And I did an experiment. I went through all those and said, sexuality or nudity. We're sorry, but we didn't remove the photo because we didn't feel it violated our community standards. Or the newest one is, due to all the complaints we get, we're not going to remove the photo at this time. And it doesn't leave a drop-down box saying, then why do you got my page on speed dial? And the message that Facebook is sending, it's not okay for me to be a heterosexual man attracted to a heterosexual female. Think about that. Are they re-engineering things? Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. And there's much more I could say about this, but I have a hard time keeping everything brief. But homosexuality is not God's way. Does God have understanding of why people might have gotten into that? Absolutely. Does God forgive us if we confess it to him? Absolutely. Do we as Christians, we still have a struggle with those things? Absolutely. And don't let somebody condemn you for it. That's what the devil wants. The only reason people are condemning you is because they're too busy trying to direct attention onto you to make themselves feel good because they got a raft of sins that they don't want to deal with in their own life. And the church is not a good place to get help on this sometimes because you don't dare go in there and tell people. You got a generation of men and women in there that are still playing self-righteous, and you confess that to them, you're going to stigmatize yourself. Oh yeah, he's gay. And they're not going to include you in their reindeer games. They're going to keep you at arm's length. And that's why I tell you, don't go to every pastor and confess your stuff because they're human too. They'll go tell some of their top leaders, oh, Bill just came in here and told me that he has homosexual. Really? Oh my gosh, oh, I'm getting away from him. So much for going to the hospital to get help. Shame on the church for doing that kind of crap. I went before a Calvary chapel in Prescott many years ago. And I made the mistake of going to the young adult pastor, and I told him that I had had a struggle with some same-sex desires. I didn't elaborate. I hadn't acted on it. I hadn't done anything. We're sitting in his car in front of my apartment, and I told him that. And it didn't not bother to notice. I didn't notice, I was 22 or whatever. What I did not know is he ran right back to the pastor of the church and told him that. And I was friends with a lot of guys and gals in that church. There was a group of us. We'd go up after work and light a bonfire and talk about God. And I broached the subject with some of them. And one of the guys said, yeah, I struggle with that too. There was no hanky-panky. We were a good group of guys. We enjoyed each other. A couple of weeks later, the head pastor had an altar call on a Wednesday night service. And I loved going to church back in the day. And I came down and he very sternly said, what's going on, Mike? I said, I just need prayer. I'm having a struggle. I know you're having a struggle. You struggle with homosexual desires. And I said, how did you know that? Oh, the Holy Spirit told me. And the whole way he said it was extremely rude. Pastor Al was his name. And right then and there, I thought, that youth pastor said something to him. Right after the service was over, I left. And I said, I'm done. I'm not going back here again. I wasn't there. And Rex and Dave and several people said, Mike, you always come. You haven't been there. What's going on? I told the guys exactly what happened. Dave looked at me and said, that's not right. You said that to him in confidence. I said, well, he claims the Holy Spirit. He goes, no. Somebody tipped him off. So not only this, but when I told this friend of mine, same age as me, he went back to the pastor and said, look, Michael stopped going here, and he told me that he went to the youth pastor in confidence about this, and you told him it was the Holy Spirit, but Michael believes it. And you know what the pastor told him? He goes, well, he did tell me because he felt that that's something I needed to know. I should have went down there and said, so you lied and said the Holy Spirit told you. The Holy Spirit didn't tell you that. He told you that, and you lied. You tried to make it sound like you had some great insight from God, which that's totally misrepresenting him. I wasn't bold now or bold then like I am now. If that happened today, I'd say I demand to see you face to face. And you bring that other clown in here too. That youth pastor had a drop-dead gorgeous wife, so he had no understanding of these kinds of things. And folks, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people in ministry that are immature as hell and are not developed in their Christian faith, and you go and dump your truckload of horrible confessions on them, they will do this all through the church, and you're a marked man or woman. Be very careful in who you confess your sins to. You must tell God, but you do not have to tell everybody else. They're not your Catholic priest, and I don't believe in Catholicism. Do not make your pastor your priest. You have to use discernment even about those in ministry over you. Some things you don't need to tell them. I did not come back to that church. The pastor and the youth pastor never called me up. Never. And said, we're so sorry. The purpose of the church is to help you to become more Christ-like, and we handled this wrong, and we beg your forgiveness, and we're going to pray for you, and we're going to uphold you. Where was the love? And we got a world today that not into God, and they're directionless fools. And you got woke generation of kids growing up without dads. They don't know what normal is. They don't even know what it is. You and I, at my age, we can talk about the Brady Bunch and chips and Smokey and the Bandit and old cars and stuff. What does this generation have? Shit, and more shit. You talk about homosexuality today, you might as well light a match by a can of propane. But it needs to be discussed. Why is there porn? Because women are rejecting men. And the church is on the other side of this equation going, that's all wrong, lust is wrong. Well, talk to the women in the church, Pastor. They're bitches today. They're nasty. They're nasty to men. Women can be horrible to men. And even a Christian man can go down to the basement and turn on the internet because his wife is nagging and crabbing at him and let herself go. And men are condemned today for their lust, but the wife that they marry doesn't look like the wife they're married to now, and she's 350 pounds and he can't get an erection for her. I think it's interesting how the church has totally glossed over women and ignored their sins and their attitude and their self-righteousness and their materialism and their OCD over dogs. Even pastors have fallen into this crap. Merry Christmas, decorate the church and all this pagan traditionalism. What's the matter with you, Mike? You didn't say Merry Christmas to me. I don't celebrate this. What? You're a Christian. That's why I don't celebrate. Folks, I'm not the norm. It doesn't matter what church I go to. I'll never be part of the group there, ever. Calvary Chapel made a big mistake under the leadership of Pastor Al. That group of friends still continue to surround me. And I went back to a Baptist church just before I left town to move to Minnesota back in 1989. Pastor Al caused scars. And churches cause scars. And if I could see him today, I'd have a very angry, I wouldn't do anything to him, but I'd say, you were so wrong. You lied to me. The Holy Spirit revealed it to you. No, somebody told you. And that was not a need to know basis. If a man in your congregation admits he's doing something to a little kid, that you need to turn into the authorities. That is a need to know because you got children in the church. But me admitting I had desires that I never acted on, that didn't need to go to anybody else. And if you'd listen to the rest of it, I'm totally into women. The Bible says, confess your sins to one another. And that was harped into me when I first got saved. Do not confess your sins to everybody in the church. If you did something to somebody in there, then you tell it. But your sins that do not involve anybody in that congregation, shut up about it and take it to the Lord. You have to use discernment. I have seen pastors all my life of different churches I go to that God told them to increase their building program. When the church wasn't even full, it was there. Just because a man's in the pulpit doesn't mean that everything he does is thus saith the Lord. Men have their own wills, their own agendas, and you got to watch it. Just because somebody's a pastor doesn't mean that they're not running their agenda through. Both of these pastors were wrong. But they were like a cult. They had their little clubby and their little following, and nobody cared that Michael had fallen off and left. Nobody in the leadership gave a shit. I'm confessing it. And I'm demonized for that? Guess why? Because Pastor Al never struggled with that. He had the quintessential materialistic wife. The the young adult pastor had the quintessential beautiful wife. And they were all about Jesus and on this esoteric Jesus experience. They're not going to deal with somebody admitting they had some homosexual stuff fly through them sometimes. They're not going to deal with that. They weren't qualified to be in the ministry, folks. You got a lot of churches that were started by somebody in their garage. Doesn't mean that God was in it, okay? Can God use his word and save people? Absolutely. Just as I will be guilty of wrongs I've done, there's going to be a lot of Christians in my life that are going to be held accountable for the stuff they did. I believe that Pastor Al and his underling are both, God's going to say, you didn't handle this right. You did not handle this right at all. Condemning this guy for confessing it? He didn't do anything. He just said he had some desires flow through. And you guys should have put your arm around him and said, look, we're going to pray for you, man. Thanks for being so honest. But they're not going to do that. Just me admitting to that, they're like, oh gosh, get this thing out of here. Get out. Sometimes Christians and churches can be our own worst enemy. I get very mad when people wrongly hate on me because I believe what I believe. I shared this story so that homosexuals that are out there that think it's okay to be gay, even though they don't agree with me, I hope that they'll have some sensitivity and say, we don't agree with him, but he did handle this in an appropriate manner. but our society is praising wrong. Churches aren't helping a lot of these people. The church culture, and that's another video, is literally left the wagon. Big box, Walmart style churches, Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes. You got all these big things going on. You got a lot of superficial stuff in the church, and you got very little depth. You go to Baptist churches where you get grounded in sound theology, but you won't get love. You go to Calvary chapels and so-called non-denominational churches, and it's all about shine, Jesus, shine, and esoteric type stuff, and not a lot of sound doctrine. And if you confess to something that nobody in the congregation does, you just put a red X and a target on your back. We need to go to church. We need to believe in the word, and we need other Christians that truly care about us to pray with us and lift us up. But years ago, I was involved with a guy named Jeff in Minnesota. We were friends for 13 years. He came out of the homosexual lifestyle, but he was an alcoholic. He was abusive to his wife. He stayed married to his wife. He couldn't stand her, didn't have sex with her, thought she was ugly, couldn't stand her. After he got saved, he bitched to me and my friends for years about how he couldn't stand her. I said, Jeff, divorce. No, I believe that would be displeasing. Then stop complaining about it. You have Christians that believe because they did the right thing. Isn't that what Jesus addressed the Pharisees? You have heard it was said, thou shalt not commit adultery. Pharisees said, we haven't. Jesus said, if you looked at a woman with lust, you already did it. And the Pharisees got silent. They didn't want to hear that. And my friend Jeff, he turned his homosexual lust into idolatry, got deeply in debt to build $1 million house with a studio, was obsessed with his work, wanted all the attaboys for how good he was. He was obsessed with materialism, obsessed with debt, obsessed with being grandstanding about his building projects. So you traded one sin for another. Good. You're not out there whacking your puddle with the guys in the park. But you can't stand your wife. You're bitching to us day in and day out and crying in a church service. I believe God would rather have you divorce her and live at peace with all this than to play this religious game of, I don't want to do what God says I shouldn't do, but I'm going to bitch about it. Now, I got to be very careful because it's not for me to determine the will of God for Jeff. But when I got divorced from a Christian woman, marriage through 14 years, I'm going to have to break fellowship with you. You had no biblical grounds. I said, goodbye. Do what you got to do. You're not married to her. I know you chose to stay with your wife and you bitched to us for years about her. So carry on. Look, I want to get closer to God. I haven't done a good job. The cares of this life, 2020, where I live, all the stuff that's going on has been a distraction. But I haven't walked away from God. I haven't walked away from his truth. I'm a man and I struggle. And I've been living alone. I'm in a culture where I'm alone, even more than in Denver. I don't have close friends here. And when we're in this battle as a Christian, we need each other. When you don't have that, it's like taking a hot coal out of a pile of coals and setting it on a cold, stony hearth. It'll burn red for a little while, but eventually it gets black again. When you put all those coals together, I have a burn barrel in the backyard, 55-gallon drum. I was getting all the waste out of my house of lumber butts and construction remodel butts. I'd saved them in milk crates and piles. And one day I just started burning stuff. And I'd taken stuff off my front porch. 4 days later, the coals were still red hot under the ash, burning. I'd come home from work, stir it with a big steel water pipe, and it burst into flames again. I was like, unbelievable. That's the way the church is supposed to work. You don't kick somebody out who's trying to burn with you. and admits he's struggling, you pull him in. You pull them into that love and that nurturing and a church hurts its wounded bad. And the reason there's so much sexual misconduct is because we're not getting our needs met. The Bible also says it is not good for a man to be alone. And is it because we need a woman to cook for us, to do our laundry? That's not what it's talking about. I believe more than anything, what's wrapped up in that statement is not good for man to be alone because he's a sexual creature. And if he's alone, that sexuality is going to be all over the board. But women today have become an absolute disaster and a detriment in Western societies. So don't run out and just grab some woman because she says, oh, I'm a Christian. You got to be careful. I better wash up. It is not good for man to be alone. The Bible says, I will make a helper suitable, a helpmate. Women, Christian women especially, can I remind you, we were not made for you. You were made for men. And in this stage of in-your-face, iron-fisted feminism, we don't need a man, we don't need a man. You were actually made for us. And you're not doing a good job since you went out into the workplace and you broke away from men. You're not doing a good job. Don't believe me? Look at the female leaders out there today. I'm black. I'm lesbian. Wow, that's important. Are you raising godly kids? Are you solving the problem of black on black violence? Women need to get the hell out of the way. Men need to step up to the plate. Men need to be leaders in their homes, in their communities. Men need to be mayors. Men need to be in the armed forces, not women. Men need to be cops, not women. Men need to be involved in teaching in the public educational institutions, conservative Christian thinking men, and not liberal feminist women. And I know that's not going to fly in American society, but that's too bad. It's not working. Things are getting worse. We're losing our rights. This feminist agenda, this liberal agenda, is going right back to Chinese-style communism in the old Lenin-Stalin way. Calling Trump Hitler was laughable. The Democrats have shown more SS Gestapo brown shirts Hitler than anybody else. And the Democrats are perfectly comfortable with everybody becoming gay and lesbian and just rejecting the family structure as God put it. And I, as a Christian, suffer and struggle. And to admit that today is to be subject to harassment and ridicule. That's because the devil hates honesty. And his followers hate Christ's followers. It really does boil down to that. So if you struggle with certain things, don't beat yourself up. That's what the enemy does. You go to God and you find trusted men and women you can talk to that will help steer you right, or at least lend an empathetic and understanding ear and pray for you. Don't get yourself involved with holier than thou, self-righteous people. This is Pacific. Thank you for listening.